Hi there, this is Jeanette for Whimsy Stamps. In today's video I created a thank you card and it features some of the new July 2016 release from Whimsy. The image is called Birthday Bell and I used the Build a Card Many Thanks die set to create the focal panel as well as the thank you banner. So you'll see how I used that. The first thing I did though was I stamped the image onto some Neenah smooth white cardstock with some Memento Tuxedo black ink. So those are usually my go-to sort of paper and ink when I'm coloring with Copic markers. I've listed all the marker colors I used. You saw them at the bottom of the screen there. And I'm just working from the lightest color and building towards the darker color and blending in between. So I like to use just a tiny amount. This is my darkest color, the E11. I like to use just a tiny amount where I want my shadows, and then I blend it out with the mid-tone. This is such a pretty image, and although it's called Birthday Bell, I used it for a thank you card. I think it would be great for a wedding card or any type of card really. It's so pretty and it pairs beautifully with some of the other Elizabeth Bell images that have been released over the last few months. So I'm just finishing my blend with my lightest color here. I'm going to start the hair, so I have some E50 and I'm just covering the hair with it, and then I'm going to let it dry because I want to draw strands, so it's better to let the ink dry in between. Moving on to the dress now, so these are the 4 colors I used, and I'll be using them for the rest of the dress as well as the flowers. So I like to work in tiny sections, so I just did the bodice at the top here first. Then I went back to the hair, so I am adding some E42 and I'm just drawing some strands in, and I'm concentrating that marker, the darker marker color, at the edges, so it gives some shadow and makes her hair look nice and shiny. I'm going to work on the skirt part of her dress, and I'm taking that lighter marker color and I'm putting it where I want my deepest shadows. So this way I get a good idea of where I want all the shadows to be. There are a lot of folds on this skirt, so this is a great sort of way to make sure you've got it right before you start coloring with the darker markers. It's a lot harder to correct a mistake if you use the darker markers. So you can see I'm just sort of checking every so often that I've got the shadows where I want them to be. And now I have a nice guide to follow when I work with the darker markers. So this is RV91. So I'm going over where I colored with the lighter marker, and you'll see me build with the subsequently darker colors over this and then blend out. So I love coloring skirts like this with all these pleats and folds. I love how it sort of comes to life. You can see it now. I'm adding RV93, so you can start to see how it's going to look when it's all finished. So again, just follow those guidelines and where you laid down the shadows at the beginning, and you just build from that. This is probably one of my favorite color combinations. I love this color. It's sort of a mauvey pink. It's so pretty, and I find these markers blend so nicely together. In some places here you can see I'm adding a little bit more fold lines just to make it look a little more even. Now I have my darkest color, which is the RV95, and I'm adding that very sparingly. I'm basically just drawing a very thin line over each crease. Don't want to add too much because you're going to have a hard time blending it out, and then you're going to lose all your contrast. So now I'm blending out that with the RV93, so blending out the RV95. Then I have my RV91, And you can see how I'm blending out all the edges now, making sure everything is nice and even. And if you see there's places where you need a little bit more shadow, then go ahead and add that. And once it's all nicely blended, I will go in with my lightest color now, which is the RV00. And then I will just complete all my blending with this. Don't blend too far into your shaded areas or you will lose the contrast. Just blend as much as you need to get rid of all those lines. I'm going to do the roses now, and I am going to work the colors in reverse this time because they're small and I don't want to have the ink bleed out of the lines. I'm starting with my darker color and then just using my RV91 to blend. And then I'll go back in. Oops, I saw a little place there I think where I wanted to blend a little bit more. I'll go back in with the RV95 now. And you can see that gives the flowers enough contrast, and I didn't get any ink sort of bleeding over the edges. I'm going to go back to the hair now with some darker shades, and again just concentrating the darkness at the edges and drawing a few lines going over the braid area. So anywhere where you would have some hair lying on top of other hair, you would draw a shadow. I blended it out with the E50. And then I have E44, and I'm just using it really at the edges and just a tiny bit. But when you use this darker color, it sort of brings out the lightness in the center, so it gives a lot of contrast. It looks really pretty. I'm going to go back in with my E50 to make sure everything's nicely blended. Adding a little bit of a lip color with the R20. Then I quickly colored up the leaves. Not a whole lot of blending to do on these. Again, they're a little bit small, so it's really quick. I really liked this color combination of this green combo with this sort of mauve pink color. I thought it looked really nice together. I'm going to do the basket, and I'm just going to be using the exact same colors I used for the hair. When I'm coloring images where there's a lot of different little things, I try to keep it to a few combinations. So I'm using the brown that I used for her hair. I'm going to use that for the basket as well. For the tissue paper in there, I'm just using a little bit of Warm Gray 00 and Warm Gray 1. And I'm coloring the packages in with the darkest RV shade. And then I'll blend it out a little bit with a lighter shade. Right now I'm just going in with the colorless blender because there wasn't enough lightness in some of the places, so I'm just sort of pushing the ink in by using the blender. So once all my coloring was done, I took this large die. You can see it has a beautiful sort of detailed edge, and that is just slightly smaller than an A2 card. I'm going to die cut the banner as well. Then I took that thanks word die and I positioned it right in the banner, and I put some post-it tape on there so that it wouldn't move, and I was able to die cut the word thanks, and I thought it looked so pretty like that. Then I'm going to take these other two dies, and I had some sort of matching cardstock in my stash, so I cut those out. Had to cut out another heart there. I'm going to prepare my card base, just an A2 card base. And I did have to sort of poke out some of the the holes there that didn't all come out. And the same thing on this as well, and I just sort of ran my craft tool over it. I think probably if I had run it through the Big Shot a second time, it would have been a little bit easier. They probably would have all fallen out. Now I'm just going to adhere that to my card. It wasn't straight, so I was lucky to be able to pull it off and put it back on. And then I wanted to sort of layer that banner over that dot detail on the cardstock, so I added some glue. Just going to add a little bit of shadow here, and I'm using my T-ruler to make sure that the ground level on both sides sort of lines up. Then I'm just using a Prismacolor pencil and going to line a little bit of the ground underneath her. And then I'll take some Gamsol and a blending stump, and I'll just blend it all out. And it's very, very soft. This is a very light gray color, so it's just soft, but it's enough to ground her so it doesn't look like she's sort of floating away. Now that that's dry, I'm able to sort of cut the excess away with my craft knife, and then I ended up using some scissors to cut the banner portion. It was just a little bit easier. So I really liked how that turned out. I decided to use some foam tape to mount that on the card just to give it a little bit of interest, so it's a little bit raised. Stick it up at the top there. I'm going to adhere the heart down with some glue. Actually, I didn't adhere it with glue. I popped that up with some foam as well. So I'm just trimming the excess. So that's popped up. And then just a few clear sequins I scattered around the image. Not too many, but just a few, so it sort of fills up the space on the card so it doesn't look so bare. And I'm just using my quick stick to pick up the sequin and then my Zig glue pen to glue it down. So I was really happy with using this die set. You can really create a really beautiful card with just one die set. Adding a little bit of white highlight to her eyes and to the roses, and my card is done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching me create this thank you card. I have a picture here with all the Copic markers that I used, and a full list of all the products and links can be found below this video on YouTube or on my blog. Thanks for watching.